It was the kind of life everyone would envy, at least, that's what I thought. I had a good job, an apartment that was just the right size, and a girlfriend who was way out of my league. Her name was Emily, and she had this way about her, charming, radiant, with a smile that made you forget everything. We'd been together for almost 2 years, and things were, for the most part, easy. Comfortable. But what I didn't see, what no one told me, was how fragile perfection really was. It's like looking at a beautiful glass ornament without realizing that just one small crack could make it shatter. It all started with one night. I remember it clearly. I was in my apartment, sitting at my desk, finishing up some work. I hadn't heard from Emily for a few hours, which wasn't unusual. She had a busy schedule. I leaned back in my chair, stretching, when my phone buzzed on the desk. It was her. I smiled as I picked it up, but the smile faded when I saw that it wasn't a text from Emily. It was a message from Dave, my best friend. He was the kind of guy who always had my back, always knew how to make me laugh, even when I was stressed. But this message? This message felt off. Hey, man. You free tonight? I need to talk. I stared at the message for a moment, confusion creeping in. Dave never needed to talk. We were simple guys. If something was bothering him, he'd tell me right away. There was no need for cryptic messages. I set my phone down and went back to my work, trying to push the weird feeling out of my head. But it wouldn't go away. Something about it didn't sit right. So, I called him. Yo, Dave. What's up? I said, trying to sound casual. Hey, man, Dave replied, his voice a little lower than usual. Can I come over? I just need to talk to you about something. I felt a small knot tighten in my stomach. Sure, man. What's going on? Just stuff, he said, and there was a pause before he added, I'll be there in a bit. I sat there staring at my phone, wondering what was going on. I hadn't heard Dave like that in a long time, nervous, hesitant. A few minutes later, he showed up. He walked in without knocking, like usual, but his usual confident demeanor was nowhere to be found. He was fidgeting, rubbing his hands together like he was cold. You okay? I asked, feeling a little uneasy. Yeah. I don't know how to say this, man. He paced around the room, clearly unsettled. I sat down, trying to make sense of the situation. Just spit it out, Dave. He looked at me for a long time, like he was weighing something heavy in his mind. It's Emily. My heart dropped in my chest. What about her? Dave bit his lip and looked away. He paused, then finally said, I've been seeing her behind your back. I froze. My brain didn't process it right away. His words echoed in my head, but it felt like they were coming from somewhere far away. What? He took a deep breath. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean for it to happen, but we've been talking, hanging out, and one thing led to another. I didn't want to hurt you. I stood up, my hands shaking. Are you serious right now? I'm sorry. I really am, he said, voice breaking. It wasn't planned. It just happened. I never wanted to hurt you. But the damage was done. I stood there, staring at him, disbelief and anger coursing through my veins. Dave. My best friend. And Emily. My girlfriend. The two people I trusted most in the world had been lying to me, sneaking around behind my back. Why? I asked, barely able to speak. Why would you do this to me? I don't know, man, Dave said, his voice cracking. She came on to me, and I should have said no. I'm sorry, but I didn't. I laughed, though it wasn't a real laugh. It was bitter, hollow. I should have seen it coming. You were always so close to her. Dave flinched at that, but I wasn't done yet. You were always there, always looking at her like you wanted more. And my voice broke, and I stopped myself before I could say anything more. The hurt was too raw. I didn't want to betray you, Dave said. I swear, I never meant for it to go this far. I don't know what happened. I turned away from him, unable to look at him any longer. The anger was building up, but it wasn't just anger, it was confusion, disbelief, and a deep, gnawing pain. How could he do this to me? How could she? Suddenly, the door opened, and there she was. Emily. Standing in the doorway, looking guilty, but also not. She had that look in her eyes, the look that had always been so full of affection when she'd looked at me, now replaced with something else. Something cold. Dave, she said, her voice weak. I didn't want this to happen. But it did. I turned to face her, feeling my heart shatter. How long? I choked out. Just a few weeks, she whispered. I was confused. I thought I was helping you, and I don't know why it happened. I'm so sorry. Sorry? Sorry? It didn't feel like enough. Nothing she said could fix this. Nothing could undo the betrayal. You slept with him, I said, each word coming out like a punch. Behind my back. How could you? She looked away, tears in her eyes. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was confused. Confused. That word again. I couldn't hear it anymore. I didn't want to hear it. I thought we had something real, I said, my voice shaking. But I guess I was wrong. I left the room, unable to stay there any longer. I couldn't look at them. I couldn't hear them. It was over. It had to be. The perfect relationship was nothing more than an illusion. The people I trusted most had betrayed me, and there was no going back. I didn't know what I was looking for when I picked up her phone. It wasn't like I was planning to snoop, I never would have imagined I'd be in this position. But when you feel that tiny spark of doubt, that nagging feeling at the back of your mind, it grows and grows until you can't ignore it anymore. That's when I found it. Her phone was left on the kitchen counter, screen unlocked. I knew I shouldn't have, but I picked it up. I just needed to check one thing. One simple thing. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the way she'd been acting distant lately. Maybe it was the way I'd overheard her talking to someone in a low, almost secretive tone the other day. I didn't know. But I did know I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I opened the Messages app, and it didn't take long. The first message was from Dave. Can't wait to see you tonight. We need this. You and me. I froze. My heartbeat quickened. I thought I was imagining it. I couldn't believe it. There had to be an explanation. I scrolled down further, my fingers trembling. The more I read, the more my stomach twisted into knots. There were pictures, photos of the two of them. Smiling, close, like they were in on some secret I wasn't a part of. I couldn't breathe. I felt dizzy, like the world around me was collapsing into itself. The room spun. Each message was another nail in the coffin. The texts between her and Dave were laced with flirtation, words that used to be mine. I'm thinking about you, she wrote to him, followed by a heart emoji. I miss you so much, can't wait to see you, he replied. It was all so casual. So easy for them. It was like everything I thought I knew about them, about her, about Dave, about us, was nothing but a lie. My fingers hovered over the phone, but I couldn't put it down. I had to know. I had to understand. The photos were the worst. I could see them together, at her place, at his, lying next to each other in bed. In some, they were kissing. Others were taken when they thought no one was looking. My heart shattered with each new image, and I felt sick. How long had this been going on? How long had I been completely blind to the reality right in front of me? I sat down on the couch, staring at the screen. Everything started to blur. The text messages, the pictures, the times she'd smiled at me like nothing was wrong. I couldn't process it all at once. I could feel the bile rising in my throat, my head pounding. But I couldn't stop myself. I trusted you, I muttered under my breath, though I wasn't sure if I was speaking to her or to myself. Minutes felt like hours. I tried to make sense of it, but the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. Why? Why would she do this? Why would Dave, of all people, betray me like this? I felt betrayed by the world itself. The person I had trusted the most, the one who was supposed to have my back through thick and thin, had stabbed me in the heart without a second thought. And my girlfriend, the woman I loved, the woman I thought was everything to me, she had chosen him over me. She had made a choice. The worst part? I didn't even know how to feel about her yet. I didn't know if I was angry or hurt or devastated or numb. It was all too much. It wasn't even just the betrayal anymore, it was the weight of the love I had given her, the trust one had put in her, now turned to dust. I needed answers. I needed to confront them both, to hear their side of it, to understand why. I didn't know how long I sat there, staring at the phone. My mind raced, images flashing in and out of focus. And then, without thinking, I texted her. We need to talk. Now. I sent it without even considering what I was asking for. I needed her to explain herself. I needed to know how this could happen, how they could do this to me. She replied almost immediately. I'm sorry. Please just let me explain. That's when the anger hit. It wasn't even a wave, it was a tidal wave, crashing through my chest. I couldn't take it. I couldn't even look at her message without feeling like I might explode. I didn't wait. I grabbed my keys, slammed the door open, and drove to her place, each second feeling like it was tearing me apart. When I got there, she was waiting for me by the door, her face pale. She was already crying, her eyes red, like she knew what was coming. But I wasn't in the mood for her tears. What the hell, Emily? I said, my voice barely a whisper at first, but it shook as I spoke. How long? She choked, trying to speak but failing. I didn't mean for it to go this far, okay? It just happened. I shook my head. It just happened? What the hell does that even mean? You slept with him behind my back. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, her voice breaking. I thought, she paused, her chest rising and falling with shaky breaths. I thought I needed excitement. I thought I needed more. But I didn't know what I was doing until it was too late. Too late? I repeated. You think it's too late to apologize? You think that's going to fix it? I stepped back, unable to stand close to her anymore. The betrayal had stained everything I once felt for her. I could still see the pictures in my head. Her in his arms, the smile she had given him, the love I thought was mine. It's not about fixing it, she said softly. It's about me being selfish. But I didn't mean to hurt you. She shook her head. I'm so sorry. But the more she said, the less I could feel. The hurt had already buried itself too deep, and now, all that remained was a hollow emptiness that I couldn't fill with apologies. You were my best friend, Dave, I whispered, barely able to hold back the tears. How could you? I'm sorry, man, Dave's voice came from behind me. He'd followed me to the door. He stood there, looking guilty, but also defensive. I never meant for any of this to happen. It was just. Just what? I cut him off, turning around to face him. You've been sneaking around behind my back with the one person I trusted the most. He stared at me, his expression torn between guilt and defensiveness. I messed up. I know. But I can't change it now. I didn't know if I wanted to yell or just walk away. No, you can't. But you've changed everything. You and her. You both, I couldn't finish. I turned and left. There was nothing left to say. Nothing that could fix what was broken. The door slammed behind me, but I didn't feel any relief. I could still hear their voices, her soft pleading, his weak excuses. It all echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the world crashing down around me. The pain was overwhelming. I could hardly breathe, let alone think. But I knew what I had to do. I needed to confront them. I couldn't let this go without knowing the truth. Not that the truth would make it any better, but I had to hear it from their mouths. I had to see if there was even a hint of regret, any sign that they understood the depth of what they had done. I didn't want to go back to her apartment, but it was where everything had started, so I had no choice. The whole drive there, I kept replaying everything, the texts, the photos, the memories. My knuckles were white from gripping the steering wheel too tightly, but I couldn't stop. It felt like the only thing keeping me from falling apart. When I walked through the door, I was hit with the smell of her perfume, the same scent she'd worn when I first met her. It made my stomach turn. I stood there, looking at her as she stood in the kitchen, nervously twirling her hair. She looked almost innocent, and it disgusted me. How could she look so carefree after everything? You wanted to talk, I said, my voice flat. Her eyes widened when she saw me. I'm glad you're here. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but I didn't know if it was genuine. She looked like she was about to cry, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. You wanted to explain yourself, I continued, my voice colder than I meant it to be. So explain. She blinked, her lip trembling. I never wanted to hurt you, you know that. It was a mistake. I was weak, and I didn't think. But I swear, it won't happen again. Please, just let me make it right. I couldn't stop the bitter laugh that escaped me. A mistake? That's what this was? A mistake? I never meant for it to happen, she said, taking a step toward me, but I stepped back, not wanting her close. It was just one night. One night, and I regret it more than anything, I swear. Don't, I spat. Don't give me that one-night excuse. You didn't make one mistake, Emily. You made a choice. Every time you texted him, every time you saw him, you chose him over me. You lied to me. You broke everything we had for what? A little excitement? Her face crumpled, and she reached out for my hand, but I pulled away. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I was selfish. But I love you. I do. Please don't throw this away because of one mistake. I couldn't even look at her anymore. The tears in her eyes didn't matter. The way she was pleading didn't matter. I couldn't hear it. It didn't fix what she had done. I loved you, I said quietly, my voice shaking. And you destroyed that. You let him in, and now you're standing here asking for forgiveness like it's that simple. Her face fell, but I wasn't done. I turned to see Dave standing by the door, looking like a deer caught in the headlights. I hadn't even heard him come in. Dave, I said, my voice low and steady. I should have known. I should have known you'd be the one to betray me. You were supposed to be my best friend. We shared everything. He stepped forward, but there was no apology in his eyes, just guilt. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did, you know? I was weak. I never wanted to hurt you, but You never wanted to hurt me? I interrupted, stepping closer to him now, my voice rising. You slept with her, behind my back, and you didn't want to hurt me? I didn't think it was a big deal, he said, looking away, his face flushed. It was one night. You don't understand. No, I understand perfectly, I shot back, the anger swelling in my chest. I understand that you didn't give a damn about me. You didn't care that I trusted you. You only cared about what you wanted, about getting what you thought was yours. He flinched, but he didn't say anything. I could see the guilt in his eyes, but it wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. Do you even realize what you've done? I asked him, the question hanging in the air. Do you understand how much this hurts? How much I trusted both of you? I never wanted it to go this far, he whispered, barely audible. It just happened. I'm sorry. Sorry? That's all you've got? I laughed again, though it was hollow and bitter. You think sorry makes it better? You think you can just apologize and make everything go back to normal? It doesn't work like that. You broke me. Both of you did. I looked at Emily, whose face was pale and tear-streaked, and then at Dave, who stood silently, looking like he was waiting for me to forgive him. But I couldn't. Not this time. Not after what they'd done. I can't do this anymore, I said, my voice breaking. I can't keep pretending that everything's okay. I trusted you both, and you've shattered that trust. I can't keep living with this. I'm done. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, Emily said, reaching out for me again, but I backed away. I'm done, I repeated, the weight of the words settling into my chest. Both of you are out of my life. I can't do this. I can't keep living in this lie. With that, I turned and walked out, the door clicking behind me with finality. The days that followed felt like I was trapped in a fog. I couldn't escape the constant churn of anger and confusion. My mind refused to settle. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. I would sit at my desk, my work piled high, but none of it felt real. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't think straight. Everywhere I looked, I saw their faces, her smile, his laugh, the way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. I tried to distract myself. I buried myself in my work, hoping it would fill the hole, the one that had been ripped open in my chest. But nothing helped. The anger was still there, gnawing at me. The betrayal wasn't just in the actions they had taken. It was the realization that I'd been living a lie. Every moment we'd spent together, every touch, every kiss, had been built on false trust. And that hurt more than anything else. But more than anger, there was something else creeping in. A feeling of being lost. I didn't know who I was anymore. I'd built my whole life around these people, around her. And now, everything felt empty, like the ground had been pulled out from under me. What was I supposed to do now? What was I supposed to rebuild? The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the silence too loud in my head. Then, one evening, as I sat in the living room, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, I saw her name pop up on the screen. Emily. My stomach twisted. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the screen. Can we talk? I know I messed up. I'm sorry. I've changed, I swear. She wanted to talk. She was asking for forgiveness. And she was begging me to give her another chance. I could feel the familiar pull in my chest, the part of me that had loved her for so long, the part that still wanted to believe she could change. But I also knew the truth. Could I really trust her again? Could I forget the lies, the deceit, the way she had shattered everything I believed in? My fingers trembled as I typed out a reply, but I stopped before hitting send. I couldn't make this decision alone. I needed to talk to someone. I needed advice, guidance, anything to help me make sense of all this. But when I thought about it, I realized there was no one left. Dave was gone. He hadn't reached out. I didn't expect him to. He wasn't going to be my sounding board this time. There was no one left who understood what I was going through, not the way he did, anyway. I realized I had been looking for answers from people who had already failed me. Sighing, I pushed my phone aside and leaned back in my chair. I thought about everything that had happened. About how she'd looked when she begged for forgiveness. About how she cried, how she claimed she was sorry. But was it really that simple? Could it be? I heard the sound of a text coming through, and I reached for my phone again. This time, it was a message from her. Please, just give me a chance. I know I don't deserve it, but I love you. And I'll do anything to prove it. I let out a frustrated breath, holding the phone in my hands like it was a ticking bomb. I love you. That phrase. I'd heard it so many times, and every time, it felt like it was a promise. But this time, those words felt hollow. How could love fix what had been broken? How could it make me forget what they'd done to me? But part of me still wanted to believe. Part of me wanted to think that things could go back to the way they were. Maybe if I forgave her, if I gave her another chance, we could rebuild. Maybe we could find some way back to the perfect relationship I had thought we had. But there was another part of me, another, darker part, that couldn't forget. The part that wanted revenge, that wanted to make them both feel the weight of their betrayal. The anger I felt burned through me like a wildfire. I wanted to lash out. I wanted them to suffer like I had suffered. But would that really fix anything? My head was spinning with all these conflicting thoughts. Forgiveness? Revenge? Closure? I put the phone down again, but the weight of the decision felt like 1,000 pounds. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't feel anything except the pull between what I wanted and what I knew was right. And there was a part of me that still wanted her back. What if I'm making a mistake? I asked myself. What if she really has changed? And yet, I couldn't ignore the small voice in the back of my head that kept asking, but what if she hasn't? A few minutes later, the phone buzzed again. I'm sorry. I understand if you can't forgive me. I just wanted you to know how much I regret what I did. I've been thinking about you every day. I ran a hand through my hair and stood up, pacing around the room. Every part of me wanted to throw the phone away, to block her out of my life completely. But the thought of completely cutting her off, it felt like I was closing the door on a part of myself. The part that still loved her. The part that wanted things to go back to the way they were. I looked at my phone, still unread messages sitting there. I didn't know how to move forward, but I knew one thing: I couldn't keep living in the past. I had to make a choice. The decision was mine. Do I let go, for good? Or do I give her the chance she's begging for? I couldn't make it today. Maybe not tomorrow, either. But I knew one thing: I had to choose. And whatever choice I made, it would define me. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and tried to clear my mind. For now, all I could do was wait. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to hear her voice, or feel the pull of the past that seemed to rise every time she called, every time she texted. But it was like a force I couldn't fight, this urge to know, to hear her explain, to see if there was any shred of sincerity in her apologies. So, when she knocked on my door late one evening, I knew I should ignore it, that I should send her away and be done with it. But I didn't. I opened the door, and there she was, standing on the other side with that same familiar look in her eyes. The guilt. The regret. But there was something else, too, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice soft, trembling like she wasn't sure how I'd react. I took a deep breath. "I don't know what you think there is to talk about, Emily." My voice was colder than I intended, but I didn't care. "I just want a chance to explain. I need to tell you how sorry I am," she said, looking down at the floor, her hands wringing together like she was still trying to convince herself. "You've had plenty of chances to explain," I said, leaning against the doorframe, my arms crossed. "I don't need any more excuses." She looked up at me then, her eyes desperate. It wasn't just about me being selfish. It was about us, about how I felt, how I wanted something more than what we had. "I know it was wrong. Please, just let me make it right." Her words echoed in my head, like they were the only thing she had left. She was manipulative, there was no denying that. She was trying to pull me back in with guilt, with promises of change, but I couldn't let myself fall for it. But then a thought hit me. What if I made her regret it? What if I made her feel the weight of her betrayal the way I had? I could make her understand just how much it hurt. I could make her feel the same helplessness, the same emptiness. My hands curled into fists at my sides as the idea took root. I stepped back from the door, leaning against the wall. "You want to fix things? You want to make things right?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Then stop with the apologies, stop begging for forgiveness, and start showing me something real. Because right now, all I see is someone trying to avoid the consequences of what she's done." She flinched at my words, and I could see her trying to form a response, but it wasn't the words that mattered anymore. It was the anger bubbling up inside me. The pain that she had caused, pain that I couldn't shake no matter how hard I tried. "I know what I did to you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "And I know it's unforgivable. But please, please let me prove that I've changed." A part of me, maybe the last shred of the person I used to be, wanted to believe her. But the rest of me, the part that had been broken, that had felt the sting of betrayal every moment since I found out, wanted revenge. I wanted her to suffer the way I had. I wanted her to feel how it felt to have your entire world crash down in an instant. I wanted her to beg, to see her regret every decision she'd made. I wanted her to feel helpless, just like I had. But then, another voice inside me whispered, "What good will that do?" I stopped and closed my eyes, letting the question linger in my mind. Would it make me feel better to tear her down, to hurt her the way she'd hurt me? Would that give me the peace I was so desperately searching for? I knew it wouldn't. The reality hit me hard. Revenge wasn't going to fix anything. It would only keep me tied to her, tied to this anger that I didn't know how to escape. It would keep me bound to the past, and I knew I had to let go. But even as I stood there, the anger clawing at my insides, part of me still wanted it. The temptation was overwhelming. I wanted her to regret everything, to feel the weight of her actions. I wanted her to feel just as powerless as I had. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said, the words coming out quieter than I meant. I felt drained, like all the fight had been taken out of me. "And I don't know if I even want to. But I'm done with this, done with you and Dave. I can't keep doing this, I can't keep holding on to the past." Her face fell, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of genuine remorse. But it was quickly replaced by the familiar look of self-preservation. She wasn't done fighting for me, not yet. "Please," she said, stepping closer. "You don't have to do this. I'll prove I've changed. You just have to let me in again." But the decision was mine. I had to make it, and I couldn't let myself fall back into the trap. If I allowed her to keep coming back, keep trying to manipulate me, I would never escape. I would never get the closure I needed. "I can't," I said, my voice firm this time. "I can't keep pretending. I can't keep letting you hurt me and expect me to just forget it. It's over, Emily." Her eyes widened in shock, then quickly filled with tears. "Please don't say that. I need you." "I needed you too," I said softly. "But I don't need this anymore. I need to move on." And with that, I closed the door between us, leaving her standing outside, still crying, still pleading. I stood there, my back pressed against the door, my chest tight with the weight of the decision. It wasn't easy. It wasn't clear-cut. But I knew it was the only way forward. I had to let go. Not just of her, but of everything we had. I couldn't hold on to the past anymore. But as I walked away, the darkness that had been eating at me since the moment I found out still lingered. Maybe I wasn't ready to forgive yet. Maybe the anger was still too fresh. But one thing was certain, I wasn't going to keep letting her or Dave pull me back. It was time to start moving forward. I stood there, my hand gripping the doorframe, my heart pounding in my chest. Emily was standing in front of me again, tears streaking down her face, her eyes pleading for something I no longer had to give. She still loved me, she said. She was sorry, she said. But those words, they didn't mean anything anymore. "You don't have to do this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I swear, I've changed. I can't live with myself knowing I've hurt you." Her words hung in the air like a toxic fog, and for a moment, I wondered if I should feel pity for her. But then I remembered everything. I remembered the lies, the betrayal, and the way I felt when I first found out. The hole she'd torn in my chest wasn't something I could fix with a few words or promises. It was too deep. I looked at her, but I didn't feel anything. The anger that had consumed me for so long was starting to fade, but so was the love. It was like trying to hold on to something that was slipping through my fingers, no matter how tightly I gripped it. I wasn't the same person I was when we first met. The person who believed in her, in us, in a future together, he didn't exist anymore. "I'm sorry," I said, the words feeling cold on my tongue. "But I can't do this anymore." Her face twisted in confusion, and she stepped forward, reaching for my hand. "Please. Don't leave me. I'll do anything, I swear. You're the one I want. You're the only one who's ever mattered to me." I wanted to pull away from her, but I didn't. I just stood there, feeling the weight of her words settle heavily on my shoulders. It wasn't enough. It couldn't be enough. I had spent too long holding on to something that wasn't real. I had spent too long convincing myself that things could go back to how they were. But I couldn't keep pretending. You don't get it, Emily, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It's not about forgiveness. It's not about fixing things. I'm not the same guy anymore. You've changed me, and I've changed myself. Her eyes filled with fresh tears, and she took a shaky step back. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. I love you. I've always loved you. You're the only one who's ever understood me. I shook my head. I can't live in the past anymore. I can't keep trying to fix something that's already broken beyond repair. She looked at me like I was a stranger, and for a brief moment, I almost felt guilty. But guilt wasn't enough to change the truth. I had to let go. I couldn't keep holding on to this anger, this resentment, this need for revenge. I couldn't keep walking down a path that only led me back to her. Please, she begged, her voice shaking with desperation. Don't leave me like this. Don't walk away from us. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The tears were threatening to spill, but I held them back. I had to stay strong. I had to make this decision, even if it was the hardest thing I had ever done. I'm not walking away from anything, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I'm walking toward something. Toward a life that's mine again. A life where I'm not defined by what you did to me. She stared at me for a long time, as if she were trying to read my expression, trying to find any sign of weakness. But I wasn't weak anymore. I had spent too long in the shadows of my own pain, and now I was stepping into the light. Goodbye, Emily, I said softly. I hope you find what you're looking for, but I can't be a part of it. I turned away before I could change my mind. I didn't look back. The silence that followed her pleas was deafening. I didn't hear her call my name again, but I felt it, her presence hanging in the air, a shadow that I had left behind. I had made my choice. It was like a weight lifted off my chest, but at the same time, the emptiness was overwhelming. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel the tightness in my stomach or the burning in my chest. I didn't feel the need to lash out. I didn't feel the crushing anger that had kept me awake at night. But it didn't feel like victory either. It just felt empty. I didn't know what to do next. Where do you go when you've lost everything? When the people you trusted most have betrayed you? When you realize that nothing you thought you knew about yourself was true? I took one step out of the apartment and paused, staring out at the street. The world didn't feel any different, but I knew it was. I had just walked away from everything I had built, everything I had hoped for. And maybe that was the hardest part of all, I didn't know what would come next. I didn't know if I was ready for what was waiting for me outside those walls. I didn't look back, but I could feel her eyes on me, her last plea hanging in the air, unanswered. The last piece of me, the part that had held on to the past, had finally shattered. But I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't stay in this place, stuck in the cycle of anger and regret. I walked, step by step, leaving everything behind. It wasn't easy. It wasn't peaceful. But it was the only way forward. The days that followed were quiet. My phone stayed silent, my mind racing, but I refused to pick it up. I couldn't talk to anyone about this, not yet. I needed time. I needed space. I needed to breathe without all the weight of the past dragging me down. Josh tried to reach out. I saw the messages. But I ignored them. I had pushed him away, too, and now there was nothing left to say. The guilt I felt for cutting him out of my life weighed heavily, but I couldn't go back. I had to keep moving forward, even if it meant doing it alone. The hardest part? It wasn't the pain. It wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing that the only person I had to answer to now was myself. And that scared me more than anything. The days after leaving her felt like I was walking through a fog. My world was suddenly smaller, quieter. There were no more texts from Emily, no more calls from Dave, and honestly, that's exactly what I needed. I had no distractions now. It was just me, left with my thoughts, and the reality of what I'd just done. But as the days passed, something started to shift. At first, I wasn't sure what it was. I didn't know if it was the absence of their presence or the absence of the chaos they had brought into my life, but I was starting to feel free. The weight that had been crushing me slowly started to lift. I'd spent so much time dwelling on the betrayal, the anger, the hurt, that I hadn't realized how much energy it had taken from me. I'd been drowning in my own bitterness, my own sense of being wronged, and I'd forgotten that I could still have a life outside of it all. I woke up one morning, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but it wasn't consuming me anymore. The frustration, the confusion, it was still in me, but I was starting to see it for what it was, part of my past. And it didn't have to define me anymore. I spent the next few days keeping busy, working, picking up hobbies I had neglected, and actually going out to see friends I hadn't seen in months. It felt strange at first, like stepping into someone else's life. But with every step forward, I started to feel more like myself again. The weight in my chest wasn't as heavy, though it wasn't completely gone. Every time I thought about Emily, my stomach would tighten, but I didn't feel like I was suffocating. I could remember the good moments, the moments that made me fall for her, without it ripping me apart. I didn't have to hate her. I didn't have to burn all the bridges. I could simply let her go. One day, a week or so after everything had settled, I found myself standing in front of a cafe I used to visit with Emily. It was one of those places that held so many memories, our first date, our deep conversations, the laughter that used to come so easily. But today, I walked in alone. I was a little nervous, a little unsure, but as soon as I walked up to the counter and ordered my usual coffee, I felt something shift in me. I didn't feel like I was looking for something anymore. I wasn't trying to fill the empty space left by her or Dave. I was just there. I sat by the window, sipping my coffee, letting the sunlight warm my face. The breeze from outside was cool, but there was something calming about it, about the simplicity of the moment. No more drama. No more chaos. Just me, living. And for the first time in a while, I realized I was okay with that. A few days later, I was sitting at home, watching a movie, when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was from Josh. "Can we talk?" I know I messed up. I stared at the message, the words swimming in my head. Josh. My best friend. The guy who had betrayed me. The guy who had been too cowardly to face what he'd done. I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity. A part of me wanted to respond, to demand answers, to ask him why he'd done it. But I knew I didn't need to. I had already let go of the anger, of the resentment. The truth was, Josh wasn't the same person I once knew. He'd shown me who he really was when he chose Emily over me. And I didn't need that in my life anymore. I didn't reply. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in months. I went for a run, feeling the fresh air fill my lungs, and as I passed familiar streets, I realized how much I had missed myself. I wasn't the guy who had been drowning in hurt. I wasn't the guy who had been consumed by anger. I was someone new. I spent the rest of the day cleaning out my apartment. Not just physically, but emotionally too. I packed up the little trinkets, the reminders of Emily and the life we had, and I put them in a box. Maybe one day I'd look at them again, but not today. Not now. Today, I was focused on the future, not the past. That night, I sat in my living room, surrounded by the remnants of the life I'd once known. And for the first time, I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I felt peace. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't perfect, but I was learning to embrace what came next. To take each day as it came. To be okay with what was. I thought back to the conversation I'd had with Emily, her desperate plea for forgiveness, the way she had tried to pull me back into her web. But I realized something. I didn't need her forgiveness. I needed to forgive myself. I needed to stop blaming myself for what happened. I wasn't responsible for their choices. I was only responsible for mine. And from now on, I would make the choice to move forward. So, I turned on the TV, watched the credits roll on the movie, and smiled. I was finally free. The next few weeks were like a slow awakening. Every day, I felt myself growing stronger, more self-assured. I met new people, made new connections, and started focusing on what I wanted, not what I had lost. It wasn't about forgetting. It was about learning how to live again, how to love myself again. I didn't know where life would take me, but I was ready. Ready for whatever came next. And that was enough for me. It's strange how things can change so quickly. One moment, I was drowning in anger and betrayal, and the next, I was standing at a crossroads, torn between what I wanted and what I knew was right. The past few months had been a blur of emotions, grief, rage, sadness, but now, as I stood on the edge of everything, I could see the path before me. I had a choice to make. I hadn't heard from Emily since the day I shut the door on her. At first, it felt like a relief. But then, the silence got louder. I had pushed her away, and I thought that was what I wanted. I thought I was free from everything that had weighed me down. But freedom wasn't easy. It wasn't simple. I found myself thinking about her again, about us, about what we had. It wasn't just the good memories that haunted me. It was the betrayal. The way she looked at me when she confessed, her words laced with guilt but not enough to erase the damage. How could I forgive that? How could I ever look at her the same way again? But deep down, a part of me wondered, could I forgive her? Could I forgive myself for holding on to the anger for so long? I sat in my apartment one evening, looking out the window at the city below. Everything had been a blur of work, friends, distractions, and self-reflection. I'd made progress. I'd built a new life for myself. I had found peace, or at least, I thought I had. But when I closed my eyes, the past still lingered. I was shaken from my thoughts when my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I glanced at the screen. It was from Emily. Can we talk? I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need to explain. I let the message sit there for a moment. A part of me wanted to throw my phone across the room. To pretend I hadn't seen it. To keep moving forward without looking back. But the other part of me, the part that still felt that pull, that connection, wondered if I could finally get the closure I needed. I could feel the weight of it. The decision. The choice. Would I open that door again? Would I let her back in? I sat for what felt like hours, staring at my phone, watching the little dots blink as I typed and then deleted responses. What was I supposed to say? How could I face her again? How could I let her explain herself when all I could think about was the way she had betrayed me? I'm stronger now. The thought came to me unbidden. I had rebuilt my life without her. I didn't need her to be whole. But as much as I knew that, there was still a part of me that wondered if closure would set me free once and for all. I took a deep breath, then typed back. Fine. Meet me at the cafe we used to go to. The moment I pressed send, a strange sense of calm washed over me. The decision had been made. I wasn't going into this looking for reconciliation, for answers, or even for forgiveness. I was going in to finish this, once and for all. The next morning, I found myself standing in front of the cafe we used to frequent. The little coffee shop had always been a place of comfort, warm, inviting, with the smell of freshly brewed coffee hanging in the air. But today, it felt different. It felt heavy. I spotted her as soon as I walked in. She was sitting at the corner table, her face buried in her hands. She didn't see me approach, and for a brief moment, I almost turned around. But I didn't. I had come this far. I had to face it. I sat down across from her, and when she looked up, her eyes were red and puffy. She'd been crying. She still looked like the Emily I once knew, but the familiarity felt distant. There was a coldness between us now. A space that could never be bridged. I wasn't sure you'd show up, she said, her voice shaky. I wasn't sure either, I replied, my voice flat. But I'm here. You wanted to talk. So talk. She took a shaky breath and looked away, as if gathering her thoughts. I don't know where to begin, she said, her voice small. I just want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. You meant everything to me. And I thought, she stopped, shaking her head. I thought I could have both of you. But I was wrong. I stared at her, not knowing what to say. The words felt hollow. I'd heard all this before. What do you want from me, Emily? I asked, my patience wearing thin. I want you to know I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I want you to know that I regret everything. Every choice I made. I thought it was excitement I needed, but I was wrong. I was selfish. I was foolish. And now, I see it. I see everything I've lost. I shook my head. You don't get it, do you? It's not just about what you did. It's about the lies. The betrayal. You were my girlfriend. My partner. And you let him in. You let him replace me. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said desperately. I swear, I didn't. It just happened. But I want you back. I need you back. I looked at her, searching for any trace of the person I had once loved. But all I saw was someone who had changed, someone who couldn't undo the past. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Emily. I don't know if I can go back to who we were. I don't even know who I am anymore because of everything that's happened. She wiped at her eyes, looking at me with that same helpless expression. I understand if you can't forgive me. But please, don't leave me like this. I don't want to be without you. I sat back in my chair, staring at her. And for the first time, I realized something. I had already left. Not physically, but emotionally. I had already moved on from her. I had already made peace with what happened, and no amount of apology, no amount of regret, could change that. I can't keep doing this, I said, my voice steady. I can't keep living in the past. I have to let go. And so do you. The silence between us stretched, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Goodbye, Emily, I said quietly, my heart heavy but resolute. She didn't say anything, but the look in her eyes, empty, hollow, told me everything I needed to know. She knew this was the end. She knew I was walking away, and this time, there was no going back. I stood up and walked out of the cafe, leaving her behind. But for the first time in months, I felt lighter. The weight I had been carrying was finally gone. I wasn't looking back. I was moving forward, and that was all that mattered.